Hello everyone, my name is Joshua. This is the 20th video of my video journal series. Today's date is Saturday the 20th of February 2026, and something I want to share with you today is my experience of traveling. Now, as a kid, I always yearned about traveling, you know. As a kid, I didn't really get to travel a lot. It was practically from my house to school, or every year we used to go to Queensland as a family, but we stopped doing that, around a decade ago. Um, and yeah, I didn't really get to travel a whole lot as a kid. And I guess I really fantasized about, traveling around the world and getting to experience all the wonders of the world. The Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Empire State Building in New York, um, the Great Wall of China. And as a kid, I never got to experience international travel. It was only when I was 18 years old did I leave the country because my parents never bothered to, get me a passport when I was younger. So I had to apply for one myself when I was an adult. And I guess part of that was like due to the old age and the fact that I don't really like traveling internationally much anymore, which I can understand. But at the same time, I really wish they took me overseas when I was a kid. But I guess at the same time, thinking about that, I very much like solo traveling. I feel like traveling as a family, as much as it is fun to catch up with your parents and really get to hang out with your dad and your siblings. I really like just going at my own pace when I'm traveling overseas, And I guess as a kid, when you're traveling with your parents, you got to stick with them at all times. And in some ways, I am kind of grateful that my first experience overseas was solo because, it may feel a little bit daunting being in a foreign country for the first time all by yourself, but at the same time, I feel like I really like that sense of freedom and just that sense of adventure, figuring out how to live by yourself for a few weeks in Japan. That was the first country I've been to outside of Australia, which is the country I was born and I was raised in, and the country which I stayed in for 18 consecutive years. And I kind of liked life when I was in Japan for those 3 weeks. Going to the convenience store, buying food, buying snacks, teaches you responsibilities and how to raise yourself, which I really liked, and how to do the laundry. But yeah, I guess back onto the topic of travel. Um, ever since I turned 18, I've been just spending all my money to go traveling, not just internationally, but domestically as well. Like I went to Melbourne, I went to Canberra. You know, last year I went overseas to New Zealand, which was lovely. Um, and my parents have been really supportive of me traveling. They acknowledge that you know they're getting a little bit older. They can't really go out as much anymore, and they're just saying, just have fun, Josh. Explore the world like what we did when we were in our 30s and 20s, and you know, I've been really appreciative that I have the resources to travel. Not everyone in the world can do it, unfortunately. I know some friends who just have to work overtime just to pay rent, just the basics. And, you know, I always say to them, if you ever find the resources to travel in your life, just to any friends, even if it's for a week or a day, just as a day trip, always do it, you know? I guess there's some people who don't like traveling, who like to stay home, and I respect that. But I feel like, you know, even just going, I guess, to the neighboring city, town, or wherever you live, just going a little bit outside that bubble, or I guess suburb, or regional locality, just going a little bit outside really changes your perspective of the world. And certainly when I've traveled, my perspectives of the world have changed, you know, and you get to experience all these things first-handedly, um, and, to travel, you don't always have to go overseas or even that far domestically. You can also be just traveling outside, for an hour, going to the local park, um, going to, I guess, one of the nature reserves around where you live, or the zoo, or just anywhere that you don't really go to daily, you know? just have like your own mini sense of adventure. Um, and I really like that. Just going outside, experiencing the real world, and just sightseeing and do everything I want to do on my bucket list. And traveling, I guess, is time consuming. It is resource consuming. You need to have money to do it. You need to have time, preparation, a plan. But it pays off in the end. And certainly that's why I've been uploading a lot of travel related videos on my main channel, because whenever I go overseas or domestically, I usually like to take a lot of pictures and videos of just like everyday sort of things, at least every day for people who live in those areas, but not really to me. Just seeing people's different ways of life, travel, communication, the food they eat, the, I guess, culture that they follow or they're a part of. Sorry, I guess that's a better term. They're a part of. Yeah, it just really captivates me, and certainly I love to travel a lot more. Um, you know, and as a kid, I used to remember my friends saying, "Oh, I just came back from Japan, Singapore, the United States," and I always dreamed of going to those countries. And telling my parents, but they obviously wouldn't listen to me. And I guess you know that basically started my urge to travel, and now I have to play catch up and visit all these countries I want to do. Um, and yeah, I guess you know traveling has really been a passionate hobby of mine over these last few years. I really just enjoy traveling, and I really figured out that I guess it's one of the big things that brings me joy in life, traveling. I'm not very much of a materialistic person nowadays. I remember as a kid, wanting the new PlayStation or Nintendo or just the newest Pokemon cards. But then I realized that I'd rather, save up my money and those resources and use them towards traveling, more towards the experience, at least within my perspective, you know. Um, and yeah, that's what I've been trying to do. Just raise up enough money, save up enough money, save up, time off work. I guess now I'm unemployed, but when I was at my previous job, I used to save up, my holiday leave so that I can just spend it all on the end of year vacation. Um, I've really just put all my resources into travel now, like planning travel in my free time. Um, and yeah, hopefully I can go traveling overseas again soon, or just traveling domestic, really. Just any sort of travel will be appreciated. Um, and you know, even if it's just somewhere like the Blue Mountains, or if it's somewhere just like Canberra, or Bathurst, or Brisbane, or Lightning Ridge, or Broken Hill, like I don't care where it is. I'd like to go to those places and just experience what the local culture's like, the local landmarks, and it gives you an experience as well. It gives you an experience to remember forever. Um, travel doesn't always have to be far. It can always just be, just walking around the street, basically, walking around the block, going to your local park, and I guess to conclude, you know, I really love traveling. I really like making videos and taking photos of my travels around the world. I've only been to Japan and New Zealand. Um, and solo traveling, I guess solo traveling could be enough entry in and of itself, but I'm just going to lump it into here. Solo traveling has really helped me, I guess, build independence, because when you solo travel, you have to buy your own food, wash your own clothes, you have no one around to help you. You're in a foreign country all by yourself, and to me that was daunting for the first time. But then I quickly knew that all right, well, I have to, do what I do, like do what I do back home. That is, go to the grocery store, take care of yourself, bath, wash yourself. Don't wear stinky pants if you haven't washed them. Um, you know, just the simple, I guess, stuff that really matters when you're traveling. And luckily, I was very much used to, I guess, buying groceries and taking care of myself before I went traveling overseas. So, I knew how to live somewhat independently, but it was actually my first time in Japan where I actually learned how to do the laundry for the first time. I know it took me 18 years to finally do the laundry by myself, but I guess traveling really gives you that sort of experience. Yeah, and I've been grateful that I have the resources to solo travel. Um, and if you ever have the resources to travel in life, I recommend you do it. Traveling can provide you with a lot of experiences. Even if it's just like I said, around the block. You don't really have to go far to travel nowadays. But yeah, I very much love traveling, and I hope I get to do a lot more in the future and share with you guys. I guess that's the end of my little comments about travel, and I'll see you next time. Take care.